Okay, what is density? Density is actually like we define matter. Okay, how do we define a matter? Matter is defined as anything which occupy space and have some mass. Okay, that is called a matter. Now, in case of density, we just consider like how much how much space is occupied by a mass. So we just take the ratio of mass and space or volume, and that ratio is called the density of the object. So how do we define density? Density is actually volume. The ratio between mass and volume is called density. Okay, let us assume that we have okay, suppose 1 second. Suppose we have a box like this, and within the box I'm gonna put one object. One object is something, let's see. Okay, okay, now you can see like this object has occupied some volume of this whole box. Now, okay, suppose let's see let's see, this one is like this volume is occupied by this mass. Now let's take the ratio of mass of this object with its occupied volume. Then this ratio is named as density. What is density? It is actually the ratio like we know that for ratio we are in need of two things. It's a ratio of what? The mass and volume of the object. Volume is means how much space is occupied by this object. So the ratio between mass and volume is called density. Its formula, how do we measure it? Its formula is mass over volume. Okay, next is its unit. Like how, what would be the unit to measure it? Its unit to measure is mass is in kilograms and volume is in meter cube. Or if mass is in grams, then volume would be in centimeters. So it can be measured in kilograms per meter cube or grams per centimeter cube. Okay, density is very important in case of some of its applications. Suppose you have a like a box, like it's a tank of water. Suppose it is filled with some water. Suppose it is filled with water like this. If you place some object on it, suppose it's a empty box and it's a filled box, you will find that the filled box will sink in water, but empty box will float on its surface. The reason is, suppose the density of water is 1. For water, the density of water is is 1, means mass per unit volume is 1 for water. Now calculate the mass per unit volume for this box. As it actually sink into the water, it means its mass per unit volume number is greater than 1. And for this object, mass per unit volume like gives a number that would be less than 1. So it means the object with the density less than 1 will float on the surface, and the object with the density less than 1 sinks into the water. One common example is a needle. Like you have seen that when a needle like is dropped into the water, it actually sink into the water. It goes deeper and deeper and deeper. If you compare it with the ship actually floats on the surface. The reason is this only one thing, which is mass volume ratio. If mass to the volume ratio is greater than the liquid, then it will sink into the water. If its ratio is small, then less than the liquid, then it will float on the surface. We have one example of Dead Sea. In Dead Sea, like Dead Sea is called dead due to its due to the amount of salt in it. Like the amount of salt is comparatively higher than very high than other salts, other like rivers. In Dead Sea, the salt content is comparatively high, very high, due to which no aquatic animal or plant is present within Dead Sea. Okay, if you jump into the Dead Sea, you will never ever sink in Dead Sea. The reason is, like your mass to volume ratio, that is density, is less than the liquid of Dead Sea. The ratio mass to volume ratio in Dead Sea is comparatively higher than your body mass volume ratio. That's why in Dead Sea you will never sink in it. You will always float in Dead Sea. Okay.